Two words create your reality before you live it. Most people believe their destiny depends on big decisions, on external events, on opportunities that arrive or don't arrive. But that's just the surface. The truth lies in the words you repeat when no one is listening, in the phrases you drop without realizing it. I'm not good at that. I'm a mess. I'm just like this. And you don't say it as a magical affirmation, you say it as a fact, as if it were true, but it's not. I am are two words that cut through reality like a knife, not because they have mystical power, but because your mind obeys what you declare as identity. If every day you tell yourself, I am lazy, your body aligns. If every day you repeat, I'm terrible with money, your decisions confirm it. If every day you believe that I am difficult to love, even the most real love becomes uncomfortable. You don't do it out of malice or foolishness. You do it because no one taught you to observe the hidden force behind those two words. This audiobook is to open your eyes so you can see how your spoken identity is silently shaping your destiny. I am doesn't describe your essence. I am constructs your present and consequently your future. And what if I told you that you are not what happened to you, nor what others said about you, nor what you failed at before? You are what you decide to name, what you dare to declare from today. You are your internal narrator, and your story changes when its voice changes. This is not an audiobook to tell you that you can handle everything. It's a manual to stop repeating what's limiting you. Throughout these chapters, you're going to discover that your identity is not found. It's chosen, that it's not about convincing yourself that you're someone new, but about stopping defending the old character. I'm going to show you how the I am statements you inherited, that you learned, that you adopted without realizing it operate, and how to start writing an identity that serves you, that expands you, that makes you free. Because every time you say, I am, you're opening a door or raising a wall. You're activating a version of yourself or hiding it. You're writing your destiny line by line. So if you're ready for these two words to become your true tool and not your invisible chain, let's begin. Because you don't need more affirmations. You need an identity that doesn't crumble when it looks in the mirror. Chapter 1. The invisible echo of I am. What you repeat with your mouth, you obey with your body. That phrase may seem exaggerated, but it's a scientific, emotional, and energetic truth. Every time you say, I am, you're creating a root in your brain that reinforces itself with each repetition. And although it may seem like a joke, sarcasm, or an unimportant comment, for your mind, it's a command. It doesn't matter if you say it laughing. I'm terrible with numbers. I'm one of those who always arrives late. I'm dramatic. If you repeat it, you reinforce it. If you name it, you make it part of your mental structure. Because the human brain doesn't distinguish between a statement said seriously or jokingly. It processes it as identity code, and that code installs itself as invisible programming that guides your behavior without you realizing it. Neuroscience calls it self-fulfilling prophecy, the idea that when you convince yourself of something, you begin to act as if it were true until reality proves you right, because you yourself unconsciously provoked it. For example, if you constantly say, I am forgetful, you'll stop trying to remember important things. You'll become careless, your attention will decrease, and eventually you'll forget, not because of a natural flaw, but because you already programmed your mind to operate with that filter. This is known as cognitive dissonance and internal coherence, and was studied by psychologist Leon Festinger, who demonstrated that people tend to align their behavior with their beliefs to avoid internal conflict. If you say, I am lazy, even if you set ambitious goals, a part of you will sabotage those advances so as not to contradict the label you've already assumed. Your mind can't stand living in contradiction with the identity you chose, even if that identity limits you. And how does that identity get installed? Through repetition, through tone, through emotional energy. Your nervous system doesn't need the affirmation to be true, it needs it to be constant. And the more you say something, the easier it will be for your brain to automate it. That's why I am is such a powerful or dangerous tool, depending on how you use it. Many of these I am statements come in the form of decorated excuses. I'm just like this. I've always been this way. I'm someone who doesn't adapt easily. And although you think you're describing yourself, you're actually programming your limits, and every time you repeat it, the echo of that affirmation becomes stronger until it becomes your way of being, even though you didn't consciously choose it. Dr. Joe Dispenza's research also delves into this, explaining how every repeated thought generates a neural network that becomes part of your personality. He states that if you repeat the same thoughts, feel the same emotions, and make the same decisions, you can't expect a different life. In other words, if your I am is the same every day, your life will be too. This is where consciousness becomes key. If you learn to listen to how you describe yourself, you'll discover why you're repeating certain patterns in your life. And if you start to change the way you talk to yourself, you'll activate new internal roots that create different behaviors. That's why changing your life doesn't start with doing new things, but with telling yourself new things. That's why this chapter is called The Invisible Echo, because often we don't hear the damage we do to ourselves by repeating phrases disguised as identity. But that echo keeps expanding, growing, making decisions. For you, limiting what you believe possible until you no longer know if it's you speaking or the character you invented to survive. Practical exercise during one complete day. Note every phrase you say or think that begins with I am. Don't judge them, just observe them at the end of the day. Look at them as if they were a character's script. Do you like that character? Does it represent you or limit you? Do you want to keep playing it? Or has the time come to rewrite it? In the next chapter, you're going to discover that many of those labels didn't even originate in you, but were inherited, imposed, or assumed without you realizing it. We'll talk about the names you didn't choose and how to reclaim the right to define yourself from scratch, this time with awareness. Chapter 2. The names you didn't choose. You weren't born knowing who you were. You learned to be, and many times what you learned wasn't true. It was a description that someone else decided for you and you, without realizing it, turned it into identity, and repeated it so much that you no longer know if it belongs to you or you simply inherited it. Since we're children, we start hearing definitions about ourselves. He's shy. She's the rebel. That boy is very distracted. They don't ask us if we agree. They don't give us options. They just say it in front of us, or worse yet, in front of others. And without knowing it, they leave us marked with a label that begins to mold our behavior. Developmental psychology explains that between 0 and 7 years old, the human brain operates in a state of theta brainwaves, the same state achieved in hypnosis. That means that during childhood, we absorb everything without filters. What they tell us, we believe it, not because it's true, but because we can't yet differentiate between truth and perception. So those first labels enter and take root. Maybe you were the slow one, or the intense one, or the one who can't sit still. Maybe you were the invisible one, the lazy one, the one who always gets sick. And although it was just a phrase, you did what every child does to survive, adapt to that role, fulfill it, even perfect it to feel that at least you were something. Over time, those labels become part of your internal dialogue, and although you grow up, although you change cities, jobs, environments, the original voice keeps sounding silent, but constant. I'm just like this. I'm not good at that. And every time you act from that place, you're responding to the echo of a description you didn't choose, but continue obeying. This has a name. It's called social programming, and it's a mixture of family, educational, and cultural conditioning. Studies like those of Carol Dweck on fixed and growth mindset show that children who are told they are intelligent versus those who try hard develop totally different behaviors. One becomes dependent on their label, the other becomes owner of their process. Most of us are operating with an identity that was borrowed, a suit we were given, and that we're wearing, even though it fits us uncomfortably, or worse yet, even though it no longer serves us, not because it represents us, but because we don't know who we would be without it. That's why this chapter isn't about blaming those who defined us, but about becoming aware and assuming the power to rename ourselves like someone who erases a nickname that no longer does them justice and chooses how they want to be called, and above all, how they want to call themselves when no one else is listening. An exercise to begin this process. Write down all the phrases or names you were defined by as a child, especially the ones that hurt you or that still resonate in your way of acting. And then ask yourself honestly, is that phrase still true, or am I just keeping it out of habit? And if I could free myself from just one label today, which would it be? Because when you stop responding to the name you didn't choose, you start hearing your true name, the one that doesn't need defense or explanation, just coherence. In the next chapter, we're going to go deeper, not just into what you say, but how you say it. Because the tone with which you speak to yourself has a frequency, a vibration that can elevate you or condemn you to live repeating an identity that doesn't resemble you. And there, the I am begins to have body or weight according to how you pronounce it. See you in the next chapter. Chapter 3. The tone with which you speak to yourself. The I am doesn't live only in words, it lives in the frequency with which you pronounce them. You can say, I am an artist with pride or with shame. And although the phrase is identical, your brain and your body respond in completely different ways. Because tone is vibration, and vibration constructs your identity long before your results. Neuroscience has shown that we don't just process language by what it means, but by how it sounds. Intonation activates emotional areas in the brain that aren't activated by literal content. That's why you can say, everything is fine, with a voice that actually says, I'm falling apart. And your body knows it, feels it, believes it. Now imagine what happens when that contradiction lives inside you, when you say, I am enough, as an affirmation, but your tone is insecure, rushed, trembling. The unconscious doesn't hear your words, it hears your conviction. And if there's no conviction, there's no programming. Have you ever said, I'm just like this, to justify yourself? I'm intense, I'm forgetful, I'm a disaster with money. You probably said it as a joke or with resignation, as if it were an inevitable truth, but that's also hypnosis. Emotional repetition loaded with tone that reinforces an identity that then limits you without you realizing it. On the other hand, there's a tone that transforms. It's the tone of someone who already decided, of someone who spoke to themselves so many times with respect that they no longer need to shout or justify themselves. It's firm, it's clear, it's silently powerful, and that tone is trained. You don't have to fake it, you have to build it. A simple example, imagine you have two people in front of you. Both say, I am an entrepreneur. One says it looking at the floor with a tone of doubt, as if asking permission. The other says it looking into their eyes, without tension, without urgency, just with clarity. Which one would you believe more? Now understand this. Your mind is just as perceptive as you and only acts with force when it believes your internal voice. The good news is that you can start training your tone today, and you don't need to make exaggerated affirmations or repeat magical phrases. You just need to feel what you say before saying it and choose words you can truly inhabit. If you still can't say I'm abundant without it feeling false, don't say it yet. Say, I'm learning to expand. I'm activating a new part of me. Say something that doesn't yet clash with your vibration, and from there, start to elevate it. Do this exercise. Record your voice saying 5 phrases you frequently repeat, and then listen to yourself. Don't judge, just observe. What tone do you use when you talk about yourself? Do you sound confident? Do you sound exhausted? Do you sound convinced or defeated? That recording is a mirror, and in that mirror you can start to redraw the character, because it's not just about changing the script, but about recovering the narrative power, the emotion behind the phrase, the music with which you tell yourself your story. In the next chapter, we're going to face one of the biggest reasons why change doesn't happen, even though you try, even though you take action, even though you want it with your soul. And it's that many times the internal I am contradicts every step you take outside. We're going to talk about the autopilot that sabotages your progress and how to start disconnecting it from the root. See you there. Chapter 4. The I am that keeps you on autopilot. Your mind is a brilliant machine, but like every machine, it can only function according to the programming it carries inside. And if you've never rewritten your I am, then you're still operating with old commands installed years ago by experiences that no longer represent you. And that's not a problem, that's an opportunity. Because when you understand how autopilot works, you also discover how to regain control. That I am that once formed in you as a defense, as a reflex, as a way to adapt, is not a condemnation, it's a clue, a map that shows you exactly where you can transform yourself. Imagine that every time you said, "I am lazy" or "I'm bad with numbers," what you were actually doing was recording a note in your subconscious's diary. And the good news is that diary can be rewritten, and not with empty affirmations, but with new experiences, new acts, new conscious decisions that show your brain that there's a more powerful identity waiting to be activated. Neuroscience backs this up. Your brain is plastic and constantly changes according to what you repeat to it, not just with words, but with emotions and actions. So every time you consciously choose a more aligned version of yourself, even if it's small, even if it's silent, you're reinforcing a new I am that does bring you closer to who you want to be. Simple example. If you always said, "I'm one of those who never finishes anything," and today you propose to complete something simple, even if it's organizing your desk, making that pending call, or writing a page of that book you started, and upon finishing it, you tell yourself firmly, "I am the one who finishes what I start." Your mind takes note, and each similar repetition strengthens that new circuit. That's how you change, not all at once, but with soft but firm decisions that teach your identity that it can evolve. And here comes the real power. When you rewrite your I am, your reality starts to obey that new voice. You no longer have to fight with life to get what you desire, because your actions, your way of speaking, your way of walking through the world begin to be in coherence with your new internal character. Do this. Choose an old phrase you used to tell yourself, one you know you no longer want to repeat, and turn it into its conscious opposite. If it was, "I'm disorganized," make it, "I am the one who honors their space." If it was, "I'm the one who never has money," make it, "I am the one who learns to sustain their abundance." Repeat it, write it, and demonstrate it with something small but real every day. Because I am doesn't change just with words, it changes when your steps confirm it. In the next chapter, we're going to reveal an even deeper type of I am, the one that isn't said with words but is expressed in your way of being in the world. It's the I am that filters into your silences, into your habits, into your reactions, and by making it conscious, you'll open a powerful door that can change everything. Chapter 5. The I am you don't say, but act. Not everything you are is said out loud, but everything you are is noticed. Because your identity doesn't live only in your words, it lives in your decisions, in your silences, in your reactions. And many times, without you realizing it, you've spent years acting like someone you no longer want to be. It's easy to notice the I am you declare. What's difficult is seeing the one you represent without realizing it, because the deepest I am isn't the one you declare when they ask you who you are. It's the one you choose when no one is looking. It's that version of you that appears when you doubt, when you procrastinate, when you self-sabotage. And not out of malice, but because deep down, there's still a part of you that hasn't been updated. That silent I am isn't shouted, it's embodied, it filters into small gestures, in the way you accept less than you deserve, in how you respond when someone compliments you, in your discomfort to receive, in your need to justify yourself every time you do something valuable. And without realizing it, you're reaffirming an identity that doesn't belong to you, that you only inherited or invented to survive. But here comes the beautiful part. If you can act like someone you're not, you can also act like the version you want to be. And that also reprograms your brain. Psychology calls it inverse behavior, and it means you don't need to feel ready to start walking like your expanded self. You just need to start moving like them, and your mind will follow. For example, if you've spent years acting like someone who always stays behind, who doesn't raise their hand, who doesn't dare to give their opinion, then every time you choose to speak, propose, advance, you're contradicting the invisible I am that your body had been interpreting. And that contradiction, well sustained, becomes transformation. Think of this like a theater play. For years you've acted a role you didn't write, but today you have the pen in your hand, and you can start rehearsing another character, not to pretend, but to remember who you were before fear, before insecurity, before the labels. You don't have to wait to feel deserving to act like someone who deserves. You just have to start responding like someone who already understood their value. Change the gesture, change the tone, change the posture, and you'll see how the energy you emit starts to tell another story. Do this. Observe yourself for a day without judgment, just with curiosity, and ask yourself at each key moment, am I acting from my real self or from an old role that no longer represents me? That question is a key, because when you stop acting like the one who suffers in silence, like the one who always loses, like the one who doesn't deserve to be seen, and you start acting like the one who knows they no longer need to hide, the world responds differently. In the next chapter, we're going to go even deeper, because one thing is to see the role you're acting, and quite another is to question who wrote that script. We're going to explore the day when, without realizing it, you started believing your own character, and how that day can be left behind. Chapter 6. The day you stopped believing your own character. Not all awakenings begin with a crisis. Sometimes they begin with a silent certainty, with a phrase that doesn't sound loud outside, but resonates clearly inside. This is no longer me. And right at that moment, it doesn't matter how many times you acted the same character, how many times you said, I'm just like this. Because for the first time, something different takes control, something that doesn't come from the wound, but from expansion. That's the day you stop seeing yourself as a mask and start recognizing yourself as a conscious creation, when you realize that you no longer have to continue fulfilling the old versions of you, nor repeat the scripts others gave you, because now you have the pen. You decide who appears on the next page. And no, it's not about inventing another artificial character, but about letting out the one who was always there, the one who was so authentic, so aligned that they had to hide to fit into the world. That I am that doesn't shout, that doesn't need validation, that simply recognizes itself and acts from there. That day you begin to speak to yourself differently, no longer from judgment, but from guidance, no longer from fear of failing, but from the clarity of knowing who you are. And that changes how you work, how you decide, how you ask, how you receive. Everything is ordered when you order yourself inside. A new type of power appears, one that doesn't depend on affirmations repeated in the mirror, but on actions that are born from a coherent identity. You no longer say, I am brave, to convince yourself. You say it because you're living it. You confirm it in every step. You back it up with every choice, and you start to notice that you don't need to impose or prove or justify who you are. Because the true I am is sustained in practice, in the way you walk, in how you speak, in how you listen, in how you treat money, the body, people, yourself. That's the moment when you stop repeating the old character, not because it hurts you, but because it no longer represents you. Because the suit became too small, because the soul asks for a bigger language, and you're already ready to speak it. Today, you're not a victim of what you learned. You're the architect of what you're going to build. And that's noticed, not when everything is perfect, but when you no longer go back. In the next chapter, we'll go deeper, because if here you let go of the character, now we're going to look at who remains when there's no audience, when you don't need to prove anything, when the I am isn't said, but is felt. Chapter 7. The I am without audience. There's a moment on the path when you stop acting to be seen and start being for yourself. Not because the world no longer matters, but because you've understood that the world only reflects what you've already recognized in your interior. And when no one is looking at you, when there are no applause, no witnesses, no likes, that's where your true I am gains more strength. Because you're not saying it to convince, you're living it to sustain. The I am without audience is the one that's declared with facts, with decisions, with small choices that no one celebrates, but that change everything. It's the one that says, I am discipline when you wake up early, even though no one notices. I am focus when you choose to study instead of getting distracted. I am respect when you don't speak badly to yourself on days when you can't handle everything. It's the I that isn't shouted, but is honored. Many define themselves by what they do when they're observed. You're now defining yourself by what you do when you're alone, when no one else is watching. And that gives you a type of power that doesn't depend on external approval. It's the quiet power of someone who doesn't need to prove their value because they already feel it, already know it, already embody it. That I am is a frequency, not a phrase. It's coherence, not makeup. It's internal presence, not performance. That's why here it's no longer about repeating an affirmation 1,000 times. It's about sustaining that affirmation as a constant vibration, as a silent truth that walks with you. And in that silence, something beautiful starts to happen. It no longer bothers you not to be understood. You no longer seek for everyone to agree. Because the I am you're inhabiting is not negotiable. It's not weak. It's not provisional. It's yours. It's solid. It's so internal that it can't be taken away by any opinion. You've gone from seeking identity to living from it, and that makes you magnetic because people feel when someone doesn't need validation. They feel when someone speaks from a place that can't be faked, and that's you. Now, in the next chapter, we'll see how that stable, silent, and coherent I am no longer needs to prove anything because life starts to respond to it alone. Paths open, answers arrive, abundance flows, not by effort but by alignment. Chapter 8. The new I am doesn't need noise. When the I am becomes real, you no longer need to repeat it. You live it, you embody it, you sustain it without effort, like someone who puts on a coat and no longer has to talk about the cold. They just walk, protected, firm, and in peace. Because when an identity is truly integrated, you're no longer rehearsing it. You're no longer striving to seem, you simply are. And that's noticed, not by what you say, but by what you project without realizing it. The mature I am is silent. It doesn't need to shout or prove or exaggerate. It's like the root of a tree. It's not seen, but it sustains everything. And that's why the tree flourishes, not because it announces it, but because it's anchored where it should be. Here is where affirmations are no longer mantras, they're consequences. You no longer say, I am abundant to convince yourself. Now you say it because you're living it. You no longer repeat, I am capable to calm the doubt. Now you say it like someone reporting, with the calm of someone who already proved it in the body, in the mind, in the results. The new I am doesn't need noise because its magnetism is in coherence, and coherence is felt, not explained, and that type of energy is deeply attractive because people trust more in those who aren't desperate to be approved. Life responds with more precision when you stop chasing and simply start occupying your place. You no longer do forced networking, you simply appear and the right people recognize you. You no longer ask for attention, you become visible naturally. You no longer seek the result from anxiety. You let the result arrive as a consequence of your coherent identity. That silent I am is like an energetic password, a signal to the universe, a subtle notice that says, I'm ready now, I no longer have to force. And then everything aligns in an almost magical way, because what before seemed like effort now becomes flow. What before was struggle now becomes precision. What before was doubt now is tranquil certainty. And all this occurs because you changed from the core. It's no longer about seeming, it's about belonging. In the next chapter, we're going to close this journey with a truth that changes everything. Your destiny isn't pursued. Your destiny responds to the I you decide to embody. It's not a future to reach. It's a frequency you can already activate. Chapter 9. Your destiny responds to the I am you dare to embody. Everything you say after an I am has the power to open a path, to move an invisible piece on the board of your life, to summon a new reality. It's not magic, it's direction. Energy directed by words that aren't just any words, they're commands, internal instructions that activate the way you see, act, and receive. If you declare yourself creator, you start to see opportunities where before you only saw limits. If you declare yourself abundant, your mind starts to look for proof that you can sustain more than you imagined. If you declare yourself capable, you start to do things you previously thought impossible. If you declare yourself peace, even in the midst of chaos, you find center. If you declare yourself love, everything in you vibrates in openness, even before the other arrives. If you declare yourself ready, life responds with doors you didn't even see before. Each positive I am is not a label, it's a frequency, and your frequency is your point of attraction. That's why it's not about repeating empty affirmations, but about speaking to yourself, like someone who already knows what they're worth, about building an I from respect, from expansion, from the deepest truth in you. When you say, I am prosperity, even though you haven't yet seen the results, you're training your mind to inhabit that possibility. And when you do it every day, you don't need to force changes outside because something inside reorganizes and the rest arrives as a consequence. When you say, I am the change I need, you stop waiting for life to rescue you and take the helm from an identity that doesn't depend on the past, but chooses its highest version in the present. This is the true power of I am. It doesn't connect you with what you already have, it connects you with what you already are, even though you didn't know it yet. It allows you to experience life from the certainty that you can grow, sustain, receive, and expand without losing yourself. And that's the key. When your I am is firm, clear, and chosen with awareness, you don't need to shout it or prove it. Your energy transmits it before your words. That's why this closing is not an end, it's a beginning. From today on, every time you say, I am, remember that you're building, that you're giving shape, that you're activating, that your destiny doesn't respond to your desires. It responds to your identity. And if your identity is big, luminous, generous, powerful, then your life has no other choice but to reflect that back. Because life isn't what happens to you, it's what you confirm with your energy every day. So now say it without fear, with truth, with power. I am, and let the story continue from there. If at some point you felt that a part of you awakened, aligned, or simply remembered who you were, then don't stop here. This is just one of the paths we've traced to reconnect you with your power. I invite you to explore the other audiobooks on the channel. Each one is designed to activate a different part of your consciousness, from the abundance switch to the 7 keys of the prosperous wizard, passing through when nothing else works in the unwritten page. They're not stories, they're maps, and each one arrives just when you're ready to use it. So keep listening, keep awakening, because the best of you is still yet to be said. If this message resonated with you, if something inside you shifted or awakened, I invite you to subscribe to the channel. By subscribing, you're not just supporting this work, you're ensuring that these transformative messages continue reaching those who need them most. Hit that subscribe button now and join a community of conscious creators who are rewriting their stories, one powerful I am at a time. Your journey of transformation continues here, and I'll be waiting for you in the next video.